Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast, where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and today in episode 114, I'm so excited to give you a behind-the-scenes look at my most recent virtual summit. So we're going to cover all kinds of stuff. This is not going to be a short episode. We'll cover things like an overview of how my summit was set up, what my goals were, and what the results were, a breakdown of when the biggest numbers came in and when I saw lulls in registrations and sales. We'll go over what new things I tried this time, what did and didn't go well, and then I'll share some lessons learned and key takeaways. So buckle up, it's going to be a good one. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to my free masterclass covering my 3-part framework to triple your monthly revenue with a virtual summit while building your list for free. In this class, we cover the secret to creating a plan you can actually follow to make your summit happen, even if your business is already too busy, how to host a profitable event and land expert speakers without a huge audience of your own, and how to use a 3-part profitable summit system to triple your monthly revenue in the size of your email list. These are the strategies I use to get the results you'll hear about today. So grab your seat at summithosthangout.com/class. So let's dive right in with a quick overview of my summit and how I set it up. So if you've been a listener for a while, this is the same setup I used for my March 2020 summit, which I covered in episode 60. Same exact summit, just a repeat of it with some fun tweaks that we'll cover in this episode. So the audience for that summit is brand and web designers, and the topic is basically to help them run a more simplified business so that what they're doing is more efficient and profitable for them. It's a free summit, so they can sign up for free to see the presentations for 24 hours, and then I upsell an all-access pass. I have 2 tiers of all-access passes they can choose, and I'll refer to them by name in this episode. So the lower tier is called the all-access pass, and in that, they can get ongoing access to presentations, as well as notes and worksheets for every presentation. Then I have the Designer Power Pack, which is the fancy name I gave my higher tier all access pass. So it includes everything from the lower tier. It included 2 live co-working sessions during the event, 2 live networking sessions, and then probably $3,500 to $4,000 in speaker bonuses. So that's what the difference is there. And then I also had an order bump. So for $19, they could go ahead and add last year's presentations onto their order, and I'll kind of break down what the pricing was for all of those, what conversion rates looked like, all that good stuff once we get that far. The summit also had a Facebook community, so that is where my most engaged people were. That's where I spent a ton of my time, and that's how I kept the event exciting, was through a Facebook group. In that group, we awarded prizes based on bingo, so they could take different actions during the summit that I wanted them to take, basically, and use a completed bingo card to enter to win prizes each day, and those prizes were contributed from our speakers. And then all of our sessions, we had 40 sessions. All of them were pre-recorded and released at the same time each morning. So it was a 5-day event, and at 7 a.m. every day, all the presentations for that day were released. And then there was a scheduled hour for each presentation to have the speaker live in the chat box during that day. So I know that's a very quick overview, but that's kind of how things were set up. You can jump back to episode 60 if you want a little more information on that kind of stuff. But I will talk about my goals a little bit. So, I always look at what I want other people to get out of a summit before I look at what I want for myself. That's easier for me at this point because this was the 5th time I ran this summit. So I kind of knew already what I wanted them to get out of it. And it was the same as that I wanted for them last time. So I wanted to host an event that really made a difference. And, for me, it's always like, how much of a difference can I really make teaching these designers to basically run more simple and efficient businesses? But holy smokes, every year the feedback, we make a difference. We truly do make a difference. And we definitely did that through this one. I was really focused on making my speakers happy and give them a good return for their efforts, which I think based on the feedback I've gotten so far, I have not sent out feedback surveys quite yet. As of recording this, our cart literally just closed yesterday. But I think I did that too, just based on messages and posts in the Facebook group and little email exchanges here and there. I always have the goal of refining my processes and trying some new things so that I can teach you here and improve the Summit in a Box product even more. So I did lots of experimenting and have processes I can refine and, use it in this business. So those are my goals kind of for other people. As for my personal goals, I kind of aligned these goals with the results we saw last year. So last year we had about 4,000 registrations and made, was it $60,000. So this time my goals were to hit 4,000 registrations again. Honestly, I didn't know that if we could do it. So I was scared to set my sights any higher than that. I thought last year was kind of my peak, but I had a stretch goal then of 6,000 people. So original goal of 4,000, stretch goal of 6,000. As for sales, again, I didn't really know if I could beat what I did last year. So my goal for sales was 63,000, a whopping $3,000 improvement, and my stretch goal was 70,000. I did not think I would hit either one of those, but hey, it was worth a shot, right? So let's go through the results, and I'll share my numbers with you before we dive into more stuff, because I know that's why a lot of people listen. So just to kind of set the stage, and I'll remind you of what last year's numbers looked like. So last year we had 33 speakers and had about 4,000 attendees register. We had 537 people who bought one of our All Access Pass options, which was a 13.5% conversion rate, and the summit made $59,000 in sales. So this round, we saw some different results. I'll just say that. So this round, we had 40 speakers, which was 7 more than last year. Did not mean to do that, but here we are. We ended up with almost 6,600 registrations. So that number doesn't include unsubscribers. I actually couldn't find in ConvertKit where I could see literally how many people have ever signed up for this. But the last day of the summit, the wrap-up email I sent on day 5, I can see that I sent that to 6,582 people. So that's where I got that number from. So we improved by 2,500 registrations. And we had a 65% registration page conversion rate. So 65% of the people who landed on the registration page ended up signing up for the summit. As for purchases, we had 1,001 total people upgrade to one of the All Access Pass options. And I'm going to break all of that down for you right now. So if you're not a numbers person, you're going to want to tune me out for a second. This might also be something that's easier to process by looking at the show notes, or we'll have this all laid out, but I'm going to go over it anyways. So of those 1,000 purchases, 873 were from the Designer Power Pack, or the higher tier All Access Pass option. So the pricing for that was for 20 minutes after they registered, they could get that for $97. Then after that, they moved up to one of the other pricing options. So before the summit started, we had an early bird offer of $147. And then after the summit started, that price went up to kind of the full price, which was $197. So we had 873 people take us up on that offer. 62% of those sales were of the fast action offer. 15% came from the early bird offer. 21% came from the full price offer, and then 2% upgraded at some point during the summit from buying the All Access Pass. And then we had 226 of those people take us up on the $19 order bump, which was about 28% conversion rate for the order bump, which was really cool to see. As for the lower tier, we had 128 people grab the lower tier All Access Pass. And the pricing for that was for 20 minutes after they registered, they could get it for $47. The early bird price was $77, and the regular higher price was $97. So we saw 79% of those people take the fast action offer, 9% took the early bird offer, and 12% took that full price offer. And then 19 of those people ended up upgrading to the Power Pack after buying. So those numbers added up are going to be more than what you heard me say the total purchase number was, just in case anyone was really paying attention there. That's why those numbers don't line up. And then we had 40 of those people take us up on the $19 order bump offer, which was about a 23-ish% conversion rate, which I thought it was really interesting to see that so many more people who got the lower tier All Access Pass went with the fast action offer. People who upgraded later were much more likely to get the Designer Power Pack. And then those people who went with the lower tier were also quite a bit less likely to get the order bump. So I think that kind of speaks to the importance of having a budget-friendly option. They wanted ongoing access to the summit. They needed that budget-friendly version. So most of the people who went with the lower tier got the fast action offer and no order bump. I just kind of thought that was interesting to note. So like I said, that adds up to 1,001 total purchases, and over 50% of those came from speakers. Honestly, well over 50%, I want to say. But we had some affiliate tracking issues that I'll talk about later, so I can't tell for sure. Thrivecart tells me 49%, but we're missing some data in there. So I would guess it's closer to 55 or 60% of purchases were referred from speakers. And then just to break down some of those numbers a little bit more, between the All Access Pass and Designer Power Pack, 87% of the people who bought went with that higher tier option, which was a 7% increase from last year. Last year, 80% went with the higher tier option, and there are reasons for that, and I'll tell you why that is in a second. It's really cool to see how some changes you make and experiments you can do can really impact your results a lot. We had an average of 27% who took us up on that $19 order bump, which was 4% higher than last year. I'll also tell you why that was. We had a 15.2% total conversion rate. So 15% of the people who signed up for the summit got one of the All Access Pass options, which is really cool because industry standard is 3 to 5%. And then that was 2% higher than last year. As for final numbers, my goals are silly. I'm really bad at setting goals. But for final numbers, we had $88,167 in immediate sales with an additional $4,088 coming in through payment plans, which gave the summit a total revenue of $92,256, with more already coming in from people landing on the site and buying the replays. And I just can't even process this. I am so thankful and in awe and just, I don't know, I guess surprised, that's more, $92,000. That's more than my first 2 years of business combined. That is more than I was making each year at my fancy corporate job, where I never thought I'd be able to earn more than that in my lifetime. And I made it through a summit. So, oh my goodness, so cool to see. And I hope for those of you who have hosted smaller summits or are getting ready to host your first one can look at that number and be encouraged by it. My first summit made $16,000. My second one made less than $3,000. This one made over $92,000. So you will learn, everyone will get better, and every single one will pay off in its own way. So I hope that doesn't make my strategy seem out of reach. I worked up to this and, it's totally possible. So I hope you're encouraged by that. So why the difference? Why last year did we have 4,000 people register and make $60,000? And this year we had 6,500 registrations and made over $92,000. So I want to break that down. Let's start with the attendees. So we had 2,600 more attendees this year, which was a 65% increase. I think having 7 more speakers could have helped. I'm very specific about pitching really targeted speakers who have the audience I want. So 7 more of those probably helped, right? There were definitely 7 speakers, in our total lineup who didn't promote or didn't make much affiliate income. I don't think there were 7 who didn't promote, but there were 7 who didn't make a whole lot of income. So, if I would have been able to say, okay, this person and this person and this person exactly, and take those out, those 7 speakers wouldn't have mattered, but I'm sure, that had something to do with it. Something else I did that I think was a big help was before I pitched speakers, I looked at the results we had last year and identified the top affiliate earners and top promoters that we had last year, and I pitched all of them to come back. And I focused on finding more people who were just like them, of course. And then myself, I just had a larger starting audience than the year before. I think for my 2020 summit, my email list had about 2,000 people on it. This time it had probably 4,200 on it. So I just had a bigger audience to be starting with. Next up, let's talk about the conversion rate. So we had a 2% increase in our conversion rate this year. Last year, we converted at 13%. This year was 15%. There were a couple things that could have had to do with this. One is that coronavirus wasn't as big of a thing this year. Last year, the week I hosted my summit was the week everything shut down and people were freaking out and panicking. So that could have had something to do with it. I'm not sure, but this year everyone was just much more chill and not worried about what was going to happen in their life. I also made the switch from using WooCommerce to going to Thrivecart for my checkout software. And I also added a social proof plugin, so some of that could have helped. And I had a payment plan option. So if someone bought our higher tier offer at the highest price, they could break it down into 2 payments. And I do think that helped. And then also this time, I didn't shy away from pointing out how incredible the deal was. Like, I was very open in emails and videos I did, like, look, at least look at this because it is so good. I was really talking at my speakers and just making sure people who were listening knew that this was honestly a good offer. It wasn't me just trying to sell them on something lame. So, those things could have had something to do with it. The next difference I want to talk about is the 7% increase in people who took the higher price option. And this was so fun for me to find. I just discovered this morning when I was kind of writing up notes for this episode. But I can directly see that 6% of that increase came from giving them the option during checkout to change their mind if they were going to buy the All Access Pass and get the Designer Power Pack instead. So if someone clicked the Buy the All Access Pass button and they went to the checkout page, there were 2 options that they could toggle. One, and the one that was automatically selected, was the All Access Pass. Yep, this is what I said I wanted. Cool, this is what you're going to get. Or upgrade to the Designer Power Pack, get $3,000 in bonuses listed off to the side for, X more dollars, like $50 more, or, whatever it was. There was, I guess, by the time the price was at its highest, it was a $100 difference. 6% of our increase in people who took the higher tier option came directly from that. So that was really, really cool to see. And then another increase we saw was that there was a 4% increase in people who took us up on the $19 order bump. And I think that has everything to do with Thrivecart. So, for my previous summits, I used WooCommerce, and I kind of I'm a developer, so I cheated my way around things and added a widget area with a little order bump section. But Thrivecart has it built in. It's, in a spot that's really easy for people to see. It's a simple toggle they just have to turn on. So I think that using Thrivecart, the way they present the order bump, is the reason we saw that 4% increase, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, the increase of overall revenue was just a combination of all of those things, the combination of having more attendees and being able to increase conversion rates kind of across the board. So pretty cool to look at. But now I'm going to be very honest with you and talk about expenses, because summits of this size are not cheap to run. So let's break that down. So my expenses, not including affiliate payouts, came to $16,600. So definitely the most I've ever spent on a summit. I would totally do it again, and I'll break down what those expenses were in a minute here. And then as for affiliate payouts, I'm estimating about $34,000. My highest affiliate earner got over $7,100. And it was actually someone who approached me to be on the summit. I was too scared to pitch him myself. 1, because it was a man, and 2, because he was a bigger name, someone that, I just wasn't sure about. So I didn't pitch him, and he actually approached me and just showed up and was really awesome to have. About 4,000 of that 34,000 number I said is an estimation and still in the works. And some of that was technically unearned. So I'll explain those things in the what didn't go well section of this episode, as well as the what I did differently section of this episode. So hang with me there, but let's just figure $34,000 in affiliate payouts. That should be pretty accurate, give or take 1,000 or so. As for expenses, I'm going to break down what went into my $16,600 in expenses. So my highest expense was Facebook ads. We spent $5,500 on ads. We actually planned to spend triple that. So I'll break that down in the what didn't go well section as well. We had over $3,400 in Stripe and PayPal fees, just the cost of doing business. We made $3,000 in donations to the Loveland Foundation and the Community Action Fund, which was from Hate is a Virus. So we made $1,500 donations to each of them. And I have people ask me sometimes how I decide how much to give. And honestly, I don't do a certain percentage. My husband and I already tithe 10% to our church, and we give to other organizations, both personally and each month I give to certain organizations through my business. So I don't do okay, I'm going to do X% because we already do that. I usually just go with the gut feeling. And this time around, $3,000 just felt like, okay, that's what I want to give. So I split it between those 2 foundations. Just the way I do things, though. You can totally choose a percentage of profits if you want to do that. Let's see. The next highest expense was speaker gifts and the postage that went along with that. So we had about $1,100 in speaker gifts. And what that was for me this time around was custom notebooks, pens, postcards, and shipping. $400 alone was just in shipping. We had a lot of international speakers. So that was definitely more than I had planned to spend, but hey, I want to show them that I appreciate them. Just like full disclosure, I would not do custom notebooks and like little packages again because they had to be shipped to me. And then I got the pens and the postcards and I hand wrote the postcards and packaged them all up and sent them all out. And doing that 40 times was a lot. So I probably won't do that again. As fun as it seemed to be sending custom gifts that I put together myself, it was a little too much. And then my next highest expense was team gifts. So I spent about $970 on gifts for my team. My assistant was amazing and deserved something really cool. So I got her a package with like an iPad and some other things that went along with it. My designer got a Chipotle gift card because she's kind of obsessed. So I spent more on my team gifts than I have before, but oh my goodness, they deserved it so much. I spent $800 for my designer, and at least half of that cost was making the 180-page workbook that went in our All Access Pass and Designer Power Pack. So, if you don't make a workbook, your design costs would definitely be lower, or you can just use like templates like the ones we have in Inside in the Box, for example, if you want to do the design yourself. $690 of those expenses came from ThriveCart. So I finally bit the bullet and got ThriveCart. I'm so glad I did. I should have done that a long time ago. $550 was for my ads management team, and I do pay them an additional retainer each month, but I pay that regardless of whether I'm running a summit or not. So $550 was the extra management cost just for those ads. I pay 10% of ad spend to them on top of a monthly retainer. $199 went to Chatroll for our chat boxes, $144 to G Suite, $70 to ProofSource, which was a social proof plugin that like popped up on the sales page, like so-and-so from Wisconsin just bought the Designer Power Pack, so $70 for that. And then $75 for a couple different assistants. This does not account for the work that my main assistant did. She's a full-time employee. So like I'm paying her no matter what. So I didn't have her like track her hours. If I was going to be paying someone, for the work she did, it would have probably been to at least $2,000 extra. But since she's a full-time employee, I didn't count that differently. And then there were a couple other small things thrown in here and there, but those are the main expenses that I thought would be helpful for you to know about. So after all of that gave us a profit of $41,644. And I think this is pretty interesting to note. This summit made $28,000 more than the one I hosted last year, but there's less than $5,500 in additional profit. So more money doesn't always mean a ton more in your pocket, but still not too shabby. I'm not disappointed or upset about that. I just thought it was something really interesting to point out to you guys. So the next thing I want to talk about is kind of some of the peaks and valleys for sales and promotion. I've gotten lots of questions about, when should I expect the most registrations and sales, or registrations are kind of quiet right now. Will they pick up more? Or my conversion rate for my All Access Pass right now is 2%. Will it go up a lot once the summit starts and stuff like that? So I wanted to be able to have data to give you guys really good answers. So every single day, minus weekends, I went in and tracked numbers. So I could tell you when conversion rates were the highest, when registrations were the highest, and all that good stuff. So let's start with registrations. The most registrations happened on the following days. First was day one of speaker promotion. It had more than double the registrations that any other day had. We had over 17 attendees register just on day one of speaker promotion. So that is the biggest. That's when you're going to have the most people sign up. Then registration stayed high for a couple days after that. So we had 540 people register the day after, and then it went down to about 250 to 300 per day after that. So, a big influx. This day two, a little bit more, and then it kind of went down and evened out. We also had another peak the Friday before the summit started and had 550 people sign up that day when speakers were sending their last chance emails, which I coached them to send hey, this is a good time to be sending this email. And they showed up for that. And then day one, for anyone else would have been another peak. So that's when you can expect another big peak in registrations. I've seen people double their registration numbers on day one of promotion, but tech is the worst. So we only had about 300 new registrations on day one, and more in that issue later on the things that didn't go well. So overall, those are the times you can expect to see the biggest registrations. Day one of speaker promotion, a couple days after that, the Friday before you start, if you coach your speakers to send a last chance email, and then on day one of the summit. As for sales, let's talk about conversion rates, I guess, because generally speaking, your sales are going to correspond to your registrations. So more registrations means more sales. But there are some areas where you'll see the conversion rate for the sales themselves differ. So conversion rates were highest when I was promoting by myself. There was 5 days where I promoted before my speakers started, and I had a 30% conversion rate when it was just my audience going to the event, which made sense because it was mostly people who had gone to the event before. So they knew how great it was. They knew that the Designer Power Pack was something they wanted to get, all that good stuff. Once speakers started promoting, that 30% dropped down to 12%. So it took a big hit, and I was a little kind of discouraged and worried about it. But by the end of the summit, it rose to over 15% thanks to the price increase and the cart close. So I did see a big influx in sales with the price increase. We had about $10,000 in sales the day that the price increased. So definitely do that. And then we saw another big sales increase with cart close, which was 3 days after the summit, and we had $6,500 come in on cart close day. Other than that, it stayed pretty steady. And like I said, it relied on how many registrations we were getting. We got fewer registrations per day during the summit, but the number of sales actually stayed consistent. So, on days that, a big speaker didn't send an email out, we were seeing $2,000-$3,000 in sales every day. And that kept happening during the summit, even though we were seeing much fewer people register each day. So that's cool too. I think that shows that reminding your attendees every day in your emails to them of, hey, remember to get the all access pass, all that good stuff really pays off because that's where those extra sales would have come from. So that is that. Next, I want to move on to the differences between this summit and the last one. And I've already touched on a couple things when we talked about what the difference was in conversion rates and numbers and all that stuff. But there were a few new things I tried this time around, some for myself, some so I could tell you guys what works and what doesn't, all that good stuff. So like I said, we had 7 more speakers this time around. My goal was originally to keep it at 30, but I ended up at 40. Once I get going and see all these awesome presentation topics and awesome people, I just totally fail at narrowing it down. So we had more speakers this time. Some of that and something else new I did was something I called vault presentations. So I pointed out earlier that one of the things I did in an attempt to get more registrations was I went back to my top performing speakers from last year and pitched them again for this one. When I was doing that, there were a few speakers where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if they'd be willing to do this anymore. Like now that I'm looking back, I really think they would have been more than happy to make new presentations. But I pitched 4 of them, because I was included in that as well. I pitched 4 of them the opportunity to reuse their presentation from last year and be a part of the event again. So basically, I still asked them to promote. I still gave them the same visibility and probably even a little more, but their presentation was in a category of presentations called vault presentations. And it was basically advertised as, hey, this year's presentations are awesome, and you're getting 5 of the best presentations from last year too. So that was something new I tried. I liked it overall. I didn't have a live chat box on those pages or anything like that. But people still liked them. The speakers were definitely excited that they didn't have to create a new presentation and could get, more traction from it. The biggest downside was that 2 of the speakers wanted to change out the promo they did at the end. So I had to edit the videos for them to change out promo. Like not a big deal, just a little extra work on my end. Okay, so I have a big list of things here that I did differently for the all access pass. So like this next chunk all has to do with things I tried for that. The first thing was we switched from using WooCommerce for the checkout software to Thrivecart. Very highly recommend. I am quite confident that we more than made back the money we spent on Thrivecart just through increased conversion rates that it gave us, even just through the order bump itself. So definitely a good move there. Another new thing we did was that I tried adding like a chat box, like a support chat box on the sales page and checkout pages. to see if it would help, if people had sales questions or anything like that, to see if it would increase conversion rates. But oh my gosh, I hated it. And I removed it on day 5 of promotion because it was basically all of my least favorite support questions being sent straight to my phone. Like, oh, my fast action offer expired. Can I get a discount? Or do you have any coupon codes? It's like, oh my gosh, no, go away. So I turned that off. I will not try a chat box again, but I wanted to just give it a try. And now I can tell you guys that it's a terrible idea. Something else that was new this year was that I added a social proof plugin, which I think I mentioned already. I used Proof Source on the checkout pages, or on the sales page and the checkout page. So whenever someone went to view one of those pages, in the bottom left corner, a little box would pop up every few seconds saying so-and-so from this state or this country, whatever, just purchased the Designer Power Pack, and it would say how many minutes ago. So I added a little social proof there, and I think that was a good addition. I also added, this was big, I added an easy way for people who bought the All Access Pass to upgrade to the Designer Power Pack. And we had the option to upgrade in a few places. We had the option to upgrade right on the checkout page, which I already talked about, and I think I already spoiled what a big deal that made. I think that gave us a 6% increase in people who bought the higher priced option. I also included an upgrade link in the confirmation email. So when someone bought and that confirmation email went out, at the bottom of that, it was PS, if you want to upgrade to the Designer Power Pack and get, over $3,000 in bonuses, click here to upgrade. And then I also included an upgrade link inside of their course. So when they logged in to access their presentations, there was a little note in there letting them upgrade. And 39 people ended up upgrading throughout the event, which is pretty cool. The next new thing I tried, which was awesome, was a payment plan. And I only allowed a payment plan for the highest price of our Designer Power Pack. So the $197 price point was the only one I offered a payment plan for. And I almost missed it when I was crunching those numbers. I had to go back and redo all of my numbers because I didn't count them at first. But we had $8,000 in sales, which was 39 people who took us up on that payment plan. So I'm really excited about that. In the September summit I hosted, we offered payment plans, but it was it ended up being like a manual thing through this janky plugin we used, and no one paid the second payment. This was through Thrivecart, so those payments will automatically come out, in 30 days. So that was really cool to see that was helpful for people, and people took us up on that offer. And then the last new thing I did, which has definitely worked for the All Access Pass, was sending abandoned cart emails. So if someone went to the checkout page and entered their email address, but didn't finish purchasing, they got sent an email. And I didn't do oh, I noticed you, I saw you on the checkout page and you didn't finish. I wasn't creepy. I kind of sent a celebratory email, oh my gosh, you're so close. You did it. I'm so excited for this, and this, focusing on the results. But it looks like you might not have finished your checkout. So here's where you can click to go ahead and finish buying. So yeah, it was just one email that got sent right after that kind of registered in all of our tech. 147 people got one of those emails. 73% of those people opened the email. So those emails had a 73% open rate, which I thought was really cool. And 30% clicked. Only 9 people unsubscribed. So that was one of my biggest concerns with sending these emails. Oh my gosh, is this going to be so annoying? Are people going to be mad about it? And I actually didn't ask my assistant if anyone emailed and was upset about it. I'm going to have to do that. But we only had 9 people unsubscribe, which is not terrible. And the cool part is that 80 people, 54%, ended up buying either through those emails or later throughout the summit. Unfortunately, there's no easy way for me to check that, but I think the fact that we saw a 30% click rate says that, a lot of those 80 people came from these abandoned cart emails. So it's really cool to see that worked. I will definitely be doing it again, and I definitely recommend it for you. Just don't be creepy and pushy in the email that gets sent to them. All right, on to some more things that were different between this summit and the last one. The next section I'm going to talk about is speakers. So one thing I did differently with my speakers was that once the promo period was open and I was going through and editing the notes and worksheets that my assistant made, I messaged every speaker individually on Instagram, just thanking them for their presentation and letting them know how much I loved it. It was truly a thank you because I meant that. But I do actually think it encouraged some of them to promote when they hadn't originally planned to. Some of them even shared that message and then wrote a nice message on their stories about what a great host I was and stuff like that. So I thought that was really cool to see. Intentional, but something different that seemed to work. Something else I did was I reached out individually to speakers who weren't promoting. So I have another episode that's going to come out in a few months about how to handle it when your speakers don't promote. But I woke up one morning at like 3 a.m. just stressed out that there were a few speakers who weren't promoting, not because of me, but because, oh my gosh, these other speakers are going so hard and sending emails and promoting, and then these other people are going to benefit, but they're not, reciprocating. And I was just mad about it. So what I did was I identified who those people were that weren't promoting, and I made a custom promotional email for them, added their affiliate links right in for those of them who had made their affiliate links. And I recorded a custom Instagram story takeover video for each of them. And I sent them those things. I was like, hey, some of our speakers are going so hard. They're doing such a good job promoting. I would love it if you would help us out if you're able to. Here's a custom email for you with your link already filled in. Here's an Instagram story takeover you can post. If you can't, that's totally okay. But I wanted to make sure I made it as easy as possible for you. So I thought that was pretty cool. A couple of speakers actually came back and said, I have been promoting, I'm just not using my affiliate link, which, all right. And then there was one who already had promotions scheduled, and another one who had just been busy with a launch, but was very thankful that I had made custom promo material just for her, because now it's going to be nice and easy for her to promote. So I don't know that we got much extra promotion from doing that, but it chilled me out and showed these speakers that, I care and I'm watching and all that good stuff. And then the last new thing we did related to speakers was a minimum $200 payout to anyone who promoted at least once. So if I saw someone promote, even if they only got like 20 clicks on their affiliate link, I'm sending them at least a $200 payout, just as a thank you. I feel like that's the least I can do. If I didn't have them, I wouldn't have this summit. They all created incredible presentations. And for those of them who, appreciated the system and followed instructions and at least tried with promo, I want to give them something for that. So a $200 minimum payout is something new I'm doing. I haven't sent those yet, but I'm sure it'll get a good response, because who's going to be mad about getting an extra couple $100? All right, next up is promotion, things we did differently with promotion this time. So first was that I had a Facebook ads manager, and I will tell you, it was so nice to not have to worry about my own ads with everything else going on, to not have to go in there every day and be looking at numbers, trying to change copy and images and all that stuff. They took care of it. It was so cool. And then our ad spend was different this year as well. So we spent $3,600 more on Facebook ads. So like last year we spent $1,900. This year we spent $5,500. But the fun thing to note here, not so fun, that was sarcasm. Last year we got 500 registrations from ads. And this year, even though we more than doubled our ad spend, we only got about 700. So definitely not the increase I would have liked to see. I think we probably broke even on them. I actually forgot to crunch that number before I came on here, but it was nothing impressive. So I'll talk about this a little bit more and what did and didn't work once we get that far. All right, something else that changed between these two summits was the amount of work I did. I outsourced literally anything I could to my incredible assistant. She's a full-time marketing and administrative assistant, and she's amazing and pays attention to detail and knows all of our stuff. I can trust the way she does things. So I was comfortable sending her anything and everything. So she took a ton of work off my plate. And like the biggest place I noticed it was when registration opened, and I did not have to worry about the inbox. I did not have to worry about customer support or letting people into the Facebook group. Literally, I think I answered like 2 support emails the entire time of things where she was like, hey, this might sound better coming from you. So yeah, she like saved my life. So that was really cool to be able to do less work and still, see great results. And then there were a few new features, I'll say, that we tried this time around. The first thing was a signature offer guide. So I had each of my speakers submit information on their signature service or course or whatever they had for designers for the summit audience. And then we made that into a PDF and posted that on the Meet the Speakers page. And I posted in the Facebook group after the summit was over saying, hey, make sure you're following our speakers, and like, here's their signature offers, just as a way to show them off more. I should have set up link tracking on that, and I didn't. So I don't know, if people used it or looked at it, but I thought it was another good way to show my speakers that I want to show them off and I want to get them good results. Another new thing we did this time was use Hello Hostess. And this is a Chrome extension, actually, that one of my Summit in a Box students made. And it's incredible. So what it does is you can set it up so when you let someone into your Facebook group, it tags them in a comment and welcomes them. So you can have, I think, 5 pre-written messages. So it'll tag them and say, so-and-so, I'm so excited that you're here, with an emoji or something like that. So we set it up to tag people in our welcome post in the video. in our video welcome post, I guess, in the Facebook group. So every single person that joined got welcomed. So many of them responded and said how excited they were. Some of them, asked questions here and there. So I think that was really great to increase engagement and just help everyone feel welcome. And then the last thing that we did differently this year was the way that presentations were released. So in all of my past summits, except for Sell with the Summit, but in all of my past runs of this summit, presentations have dripped out every hour. So 7 a.m., the first presentation goes live and there's an hour in the chat box. 8 a.m., the next presentation goes live and there's an hour with that speaker in the chat box. This time, I released all of the presentations at the same time each day. So every day at 7 a.m. Central, all of the presentations for that day dropped. And then I still had that scheduled hour in the chat for each presentation. So 7, 8, 9, all the way up to like 2 o'clock, there was always a speaker live in their chat box during that time. But, if someone was in a different time zone, or someone only had a couple hours or an hour that they could sit and watch during the day, everything was already available for them. And the attendees really, really loved that. So it was a really good experience for them. There were fewer emails and Facebook messages and all that stuff of people saying like, hey, this is supposed to be live, but it's not. That just wasn't an issue this time around. And it was easier for us to manage too, because we weren't having to go check every single hour. Okay, is this page live? Is this page live? Is everything right on it? We were able to check it all at once each morning of the event, which was really cool. Overall, engagement was probably a little bit lower per session, maybe about, 50 to 60% of the normal number of people in the chat box, but I do think it was worth it just for the better experience for them. The speakers still had quite a bit of engagement in the chat box, and it was just easier for us as well. So next, I want to talk about some things that didn't go so hot. And I want to tell you these things so you know that it's not all going to be perfect. No matter how many times you do it, no matter how great your numbers look, stuff isn't just all going to work. So the first set of things that didn't go so hot were, of course, related to tech, because why wouldn't tech be a royal pain in something like this? So the first thing that happened was on day 1 of promotion. Luckily, I woke up and was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be crazy about this. And I need to just go test the registration page one more time. I had already tested so many times. I tested the night before, but this email is about to go out to 4,000 people. I'm going to go test one more time. And thank goodness I did, because the registration form had stopped working. You could enter your information, then it just redirected to an error page. Cool. So I had to pause all of my promotion for that morning. I spent an hour trying to fix that. It was more stressful than it should have been, because no promos going out. It's fine. But got that fixed after an hour, and then things were fine from there. Something else that was just a little boo-boo, I guess, was that people signing up through Facebook ads the first couple of days weren't getting put in our email sequence. So they were getting tagged as having signed up, but they weren't getting any emails about the event. So, I caught that a couple of days in and started sending those emails to them. Another bigger issue we ran into was something I hinted at earlier about day 1 promotion, when we only had 300 people sign up on day 1, and usually you would expect a huge peak. Well, I noticed that at 2 p.m. I was like, wait, I look at my ConvertKit graph, what's going on? We should have way more people who have signed up today. Turns out we had hit our ConvertKit limits. And checking these is something I always tell my students to do. It's part of our process map that we give our students. Reach out to your email service provider, have them automatically upgrade your account, or make sure it's going to happen. And I didn't do that this time around because I've done it every other year. And they always tell me yep, you're automatically going to upgrade. You're good to go, whatever. Turns out when you hit 10,000 subscribers on ConvertKit, they just stop automatically upgrading you. And it's something you have to approve. So we hit 10,000 people, and then no one else could sign up. So that was a big bummer. I don't know how many people we missed. I let myself be sad about that for about 30 seconds and then moved on. I basically, to fix it, I just deleted cold subscribers. I didn't send a re-engagement sequence or anything. If they were tagged as a cold subscriber and weren't signed up for the summit, I just removed them. So that cleared out 2,200 people on my email list. And now I had room for people to start signing up again. But that was annoying. So I guess don't make assumptions. Always check with your email service provider. There we go. And then another big headache, again, another one I hinted at earlier, was an issue with Thrivecart affiliate tracking. And oh my goodness, I've spent lots of time with some speakers in email. I've spent at least an hour this morning working on this, and I am not done yet. But basically what I learned was that if someone, an affiliate puts their affiliate link in their browser and visits their page, it redirects to a much prettier version of that link, like yourwebsite.com/their username, basically. So it's a much prettier link to use than the big ugly Thrivecart one. So there were some speakers who, tested their link, I'm thinking, saw that prettier link and were like, oh my gosh, I would much rather use this. They copied that link and that's what they used to promote. But anyone who used that link, nothing was tracked. No clicks or sales or anything were tracked. And I noticed this a few days in Google Analytics, because every morning, part of the tracking I was doing for this episode was seeing, okay, how many registration page views do we have today? How many signups? So I was seeing whoa, this person just sent, hundreds of page views today. Oh, wait, Thrivecart says 0. What is going on? And it took us a while to figure out that that's what it was. It took actually a speaker reaching out and asking how it was possible that they hadn't gotten any sales yet for us to figure this out. So basically what I'm getting to do is go through and manually calculate, estimated commissions for, about 10 of our 40 speakers, use the round link. So I'm having to go through and say, all right, Google Analytics, you said you had this many page views. Other speakers who had this many page views got about, this much in a payout. I'm emailing them with all those numbers, asking them, does this sound fair to you? And then as each one gets back to me, that's what we're going to go with through the payout. So that's why my $34,000 in affiliate payout number I said earlier was an estimation, because we're still kind of working on finalizing this with all of the speakers who ran into this issue. So if you use Thrivecart, there's a pro tip for you. Tell your speakers to use the affiliate link you give them, not the redirected version of it. That was a painful lesson to learn, but hopefully I can save a few of you from having to deal with it as well. All right, one more category of things that didn't go well, and that was engagement. So the first thing was that I got blocked from commenting on Facebook on day 2 of registration being open. And I think it was a combination of using Hello Hostess. So, every time we let someone into the Facebook group, it would comment from my profile under this video. And then, I had just kind of fun Q&A posts going up in the group. And I was trying to respond to every single person who answered the question. And apparently Facebook decided I was a spammer and blocked me. So that was really annoying. I wasn't able to comment for a while. And then I started commenting from my pages instead. And that seemed to help. I was able to comment again after a day and we didn't run into it again. But it was definitely annoying and stressful. I was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I can't comment or post this entire summit? It's going to hurt engagement so bad. So I guess something to watch out for. If you have a page, maybe comment on that just as much as you comment from your personal profile. I definitely mixed it up and it was fine. And then the other thing that didn't go well, I already mentioned, and that was having a chat box on the sales page. Did not like it, but I already talked about that, so we won't go into that again, because as you can hear, my voice is about done for. So let's switch over to the positive things and just kind of cover some things that went well. This episode is getting crazy long, so I'm going to go nice and fast. Registrations went really well. We had a lot of presenters with the perfect audience for the summit. I think inviting the best performing speakers back went really well. And then I was open to people who pitched me. So I had 4 speakers this time around who emailed or messaged me on Instagram saying hey, when are you running the summit again? I'd love to be a speaker. And 3 out of the 4 of those people went really hard. One of them was our top affiliate earner he made $4,000 more than anyone else in affiliate earnings. So that was really cool. Knowing that being open to people who approach you is a good idea because they're the people who value your event and want to be a part of it and will go hard for it. So that was cool to see. As far as what went well for income, switching to Thrivecart, I've already mentioned, was a really good move. The cart abandonment emails were a really great move, and having the option for people to upgrade to our higher tier All Access Pass during checkout worked really well also. Things that went well for engagement were Summit Bingo. I've played Summit Bingo in my last 3 summits, and it's awesome. It gets people engaged. It's fun. It's a great way to award prizes. Those of you with Summit in a Box, you have our exact bingo card template and tutorials and all that stuff in there, but that was definitely a good thing to have. Networking sessions as part of the Designer Power Pack were a huge hit again. They loved getting to know each other. And then Hello Hostess was really nice to have to welcome people as we were letting them into the Facebook group. As far as speakers go, I think just making the process easy for them and being truly, genuinely appreciative and supportive went a long way. They saw that I cared. They have shown appreciation back to me. They showed it back to me through promoting. So I think that was a good thing. And then last, a few things related to the process that went well. My assistant doing a ton just was great. It was really nice to be able to offload a bunch of stuff to her. And then I also added an extra week between when speakers' presentations were due and the summit. So in the past, I've had the due date 2 weeks before the summit starts. This time around, I did a 3 week. A 3 week before the summit starts is when their presentations were due. And I am glad I did that. I would definitely do that again. Next up, we have a couple more sections here. Next up, I want to talk about some changes that I'm going to make next time as compared to this time. The first thing I want to do are live panels. So I had a daily live panel in the summit I hosted back in September, which was a different summit, different theme, everything. And it was so fun. It was such a great way for the audience to connect with the speakers, for me to connect with the speakers, for the speakers to connect with each other. And I had totally planned to do that. I had the topics outlined. I had potential speakers outlined for 4 daily panels. But by the time I got done pitching and landing 40, keynote speakers, I decided that the panels were going to be too much. I did not want to put myself through that or my assistant through that. So we decided not to do the panels this time around. So I would love to add those with whatever my next summit is. We plan to do that. Something else I could potentially change next time is maybe letting speakers know about the minimum payout amount to those who promote. Like this time, it's something that I just decided to do literally today. I'd been thinking about it, but it was just today where I'm like, yes, we're going to do this. And I counted that into the affiliate calculations I was doing. So, I might think about letting them know that like in the pitch I send. I'm not sure. I'm not sure either way. The surprise is definitely nice for them. I'm not sure that letting them know there's a 200 minimum would really change anyone's mind, because that's not a ton. So I don't know. We'll think about that. Another cool way that one of my Summit in a Box students is doing this is that she's giving a $100 bonus to speakers who turn their materials in on time and promote, which I thought is another cool way to go about doing this. If it's something you would kind of consider. And then the last change I plan to make is to run a shorter summit. Honestly, 5 days just felt so long this time. The attendees loved it. I know they started getting overwhelmed by the end. And for me, it just felt like, with the straight presentations I was doing, like every day was just solid presentations. There were no live sessions mixed in. I wasn't launching anything at the end. So that 5-day summit, it felt like a lot. So moving forward, I think I'll stick to 3 or 4 days of presentations, with the 4th or 5th day being like kind of focused on a launch. So having live interactive sessions, doing a webinar, whatever. So last thing I'll change, or the last thing I thought about that I'll change so far. As for overall lessons, and this is the last section in this episode, my first lesson that I learned is don't assume your tech's going to work just because it has before. Or don't assume your tech's going to work on day 1 of promotion just because it worked the day before. Always be testing, test yourself, have other people test for you as well. Expect things to break. Let's just go about it like that. My next lesson was experiment. Experiment with new ideas you have. So like this time around, the social proof plugin, chat box, cart abandonment emails, payment plan, the advertised upgrade option, switching to Thrivecart, all of those were experiments. Some of them were great. Most of them were great. A couple kind of bombed, but oh my gosh, it was so worth it. We definitely saw thousands of extra dollars in revenue come in because of those things. I think it gave a better overall experience. So I definitely think experimenting is worth it. So think about how you could, apply that to your summit, not necessarily to the sales portion, just to anything. Be open to experimenting. My next lesson was that it is all about the speakers. It is still all about the speakers, but don't worry about influencers. I did not have any Amy Porterfield level people in this event, and we still made over $90,000. Yes, there were people with significantly bigger audiences than me, tens of thousands of Instagram followers, all that good stuff, people with over 10,000 people on their email list, but it wasn't any of those huge, big name influencers. Invite people with your audience who will actually promote. That is the key to finding speakers that will move your event forward. My next lesson was don't depend on ads. So we had actually planned on spending $15,000 on ads. And it was more just because I was like, why not? We can, and our ads have been profitable in the past and someone else is managing them. So cool, let's do it. But we actually only ended up spending $5,500 because they just weren't working very well. We had some tracking issues. We found that Thrivecart automatically tracks purchases in Facebook. And I also had a purchase pixel on my thank you pages. So we were having some double tracking, and it basically just wasn't paying off. We were not getting a very good return. So about a week in, we decided to stop ads for a little bit, and then we restarted them just at a lower budget, and ended up spending a third of what we'd planned. So if I had depended on ads, like if I wasn't relying on my speakers to promote and making moves to make it so that they would get results, if I was depending on ads, we would have had a very pathetic summit. So don't depend on Facebook ads to get you the summit you want. My next lesson was, if you can hire a community manager, do it. Someone to answer your support emails, interact in the Facebook group, admit and welcome new members to the Facebook group, monitor chat boxes. It was so nice. I did do all of the Facebook group interaction just because I love to get to know the members that way and interact like that. But my assistant handled everything else, all the support emails, all the chat box monitoring, and it freed me up to have more energy to give to attendees in the Facebook group. And I was able to get other things done during the summit. Like I wrote some content, I recorded some podcast episodes, I wrote some Instagram posts. It was really cool to be able to kind of disconnect, for a couple hours a day and go do those other things because I knew she had everything under control. My last lesson learned is just a little more encouragement for you. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, but basically, if your first summit isn't a smashing success, whether you already hosted the summit, it didn't go well, or you have one coming up and it doesn't go as well as you wanted, please don't give up, okay? My first summit made $16,000. My second made less than $3,000. This one, which was my sixth summit, made $90,000, and every single one was worth doing. Even that $3,000 summit was worth doing because I learned things. I learned so much that I applied. Like, that's part of why we have awesome results to show this time. So please don't get discouraged if you have a summit that's, a little smaller or a lot smaller than you were hoping for. But I hope this episode was valuable. Holy smokes, it was a long one. But thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and resources and an outline of all the numbers and everything we talked about, head to summitHostHangout.com/114. If you want to learn all my strategies, the best way to do this is in our Summit in a Box program, where you get our step-by-step strategies, our processes, copy templates, website templates, graphic templates, so much more. Enrollment publicly opens at the end of April, but you just might get a private invite if you jump into the masterclass I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, and you can grab your seat for that over at summitHostHangout.com/class. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.